I have so many of these problems I just can't stop thinking about. I don't know what to do anymore.
I know it seems like you could be in the breaking point at any moment, but just trust me when I say it's going to be fine. Now, I want you to imagine that you're on a cloud.
But I can't imagine anything.
No? Don't worry, just try. I want you to imagine that you're on a cloud. A pink, fluffy cloud. And that everything's starting to go warm and cold. Detective Banks here. I wonder if you know a therapist that goes by the name Martin Ferry. He poses as a therapist, but he's actually a well-known bank robber. He's committed several sexual harassment crimes, and he's been spotted in the local area recently.
No, I haven't.
Ah, well. Thank you for your time anyway, Mr. Shambles.
Well, that was weird. What the hell just happened?
Well, you just imagined something. Now, give me money, take off your clothes. I've got something I want to imagine.
No, no, no! Yo guys, Mark here, and today we're going to be exploring what the imagination is. So, most of us in our daily lives already have an understanding of what the imagination is, but what is it actually used for? Well, our imagination can be used for a multitude of things such as creation, planning ahead, programming our minds, destruction, and many other things. Now, you're probably wondering, what is the imagination made up of? Now, in a simple sense, I'd say it's made up of our memories, experiences, symbolism, and previous emotions weaving our mind's eye into visual and audio-like visions that we experience in our inner worlds. But at a deeper level, I'd say it's made up of our dreams, environment, beliefs, fantasies, and our inner voice. Now, as we move throughout life, we are experiencing constant change from our jobs to moving house and our love lives. But throughout these changes, how do we stay true to who we are? I would say that it's in the way that our imaginations fuel our sense of self, personal identity, and subconscious mind. And in turn, that gives us insight into what we do, what our goals are, and where we stand in line with our ideals. If you look at where you are now, you might be sitting on a train or watching TV on the sofa, and within one thought track away, you might now have the inspiration to write a play script or finish a task you've been procrastinating with. Or maybe at the moment, you might be on your work break and thinking of how you want to live in Hawaii. And what do you know? Bang, you're already there, because the future is like a magnet we're being attracted to, with the ability to somewhat create one with your own mind and willpower whilst being in the present moment. So now, as we look at our own civilization from the dawn of humanity until now, what we realize is that in the years humans spent as cavemen, there was very little housing infrastructure, with the most advanced form of technology being a fire. Whereas now, in the modern civilization, we have cities everywhere, with the internet being just one click away. Now, if we take a step further back, we realize that this is a combined result of what people have imagined, and not just one person individually. But as these ideas were being created, they wouldn't just have one solid meaning. There would be multiple ways one idea could be seen, causing the idea itself to change forever. But bringing this back to how buildings have changed, it's clear that there are a bigger variety of materials we can make our settlements out of, such as bricks, cement, glass, compared to the past where it was mainly sticks and woolly mammoth bones. But before these ideas are physically created, I would say they exist somewhere else completely, in a different form, and that energy is transferred over into physical matter because energy cannot be created or destroyed, only transferred. But seeing as humans are the only species noted so far as having an imagination, with levels of pollution increasing along with deforestation, do you think that the imagination is to blame for the amount of pollution caused to the planet? Let me know what you think in the comments below. So when we are looking at the way that creativity has been influenced within the modern era, it's very noticeable how only this inner world that you can see has led to the formation of the arts. From painting to films, acting and music, there has always been this realm beyond us that we feel like we're connecting to when we try and make something arty. It's as if we ourselves are the bridge between this creative universe and real life, trying to ground the idea into reality with our human body as the medium. And when I mean the word medium, I mean it in the way that for this drawing to be sketched, the idea has to come through me, and I'm the only one who has to control the pencil to get the drawing onto the page, kinda in the ghost psychic way. Back to my point, it's these first visual images that we are drawn to in our minds that give us the momentary rush of energy that tells us to go and create something. But it's not just the arts that have been influenced. Areas such as self-care, therapy, and meditation have taken greatly from the imagination. However, I might even say they go hand in hand. But this is because our brains can't tell the difference between what's good or what's bad. If we imagine something to be bad, like our first day of work, it's only going to skew our perception and reality more towards it. But if we imagine that day going good, not only is our reality more likely to become good, but our brains are more likely to rewire themselves to become more positive. And in meditation as well, you can choose to visualize whatever you want. You might even do a compassion meditation, which is where you imagine sending love to yourself, close friends, and acquaintances, and even people you don't like. And when this is practiced regularly for a long period of time, not only do we develop more self-love, but also more empathy for others. Well, now that we know the possibilities of how much our life is governed by what we imagine, I'd like to ask you guys, how much of our imaginations are really our own? Because when we are growing up, we are often being influenced by what's around us, such as things on the TV, what shows we watch, how we expected to behave as part of the culture, to our music tastes, and our favourite books or superheroes. And now, from taking in all of these creations, there's one thing you might or might not have noticed, and that's the fact that we might absorb the intent of a character or the emotions and meanings subconsciously, which in turn causes us to embody some of those characteristics. You know, you might be someone who is very upbeat and lively who listens to rock and roll, or you might be somebody who listens to a lot of emo rap and focuses on past relations and feelings quite a lot. So even something like music tastes can affect our character. Now, when we bring the imagination into our friendships, even when a close friend of ours tells us about events in their life, we can still be conflicted in the way we are supposed to feel. And this is because there are so many angles to what we can hear from their story, but we never truly know what happened, how a funny situation was, or the severity of it, because we were never there. We'd have to imagine it. And this in turn can reinforce the way we see other people, because our brains are trying to piece together a puzzle of who they are, whether it's the moments we see or just assumptions. But whatever we see of one person, how do we really know if it's true? Because this is just what we ourselves are seeing. Now, onto the darker part of this point, our imaginations can also be unified in order to create hatred and propaganda. And in the way our imagination has been manipulated like that, it has caused nations to form borders, weapons, and war. And even though we as human beings are the same, one idea might cause us to think otherwise. When we think of human life and how repetitive it can get, there's no wonder why we are clearly drawn to the imagination. You see, if we are stuck in the same boring job and habits, there's always a sense of freedom we're willing to create without even trying. And now you know why some people are so obsessed with being their favourite childhood superhero or a godlike anime character. So when this imaginary world lines up with our daily life, we often want those images to make us feel like we are more than enough, or like we are powerful even when we are in a position where we are not. So in a sense, this is just a pursuit to feel like we have a purpose in life, as many of us are still searching for it, hoping it would magically pop up. However, when we really think about it, those reasons for having a purpose are already there. So not only does having a purpose give us something to live for, it also gives us more hope when the chips are down. You see, if we choose to see things in an extremely realist way, what does a cup mean to us? It might not even mean anything, and can be seen only as an object to hold water. But if we used our imagination like a child, we could pretend there's something underneath the cup, or if it was upside down, we might even use the cup to throw a ball into. You see, not one thing has only one purpose, and I think the major reason we are attracted to that state of imagination is because it allows us to be playful and interact with our inner child. And I feel like it's important to never lose that aspect of that side of yourself, because it's important to be able to feel excited and to feel as much joy as possible, because children themselves usually express themselves unconditionally. And I'm not trying to say that realism is a bad thing, it's just that too much of it can really make you get lost in the odds of how uncertain achieving your dreams are. But being too idealistic is like expecting everything to be perfect in an imperfect, dangerous world. And that's where you have to find a balance. And now I want to go over how our imagination draws us to seeing emotions, people, and characters develop. Picture this. You've just had a newborn baby, and now someday that child is going to grow up to be a fully capable adult just like yourself. You don't even realise how much untapped potential there is. This is going to be the ride of your life like no other. Life is about to flow through this kid, and every moment you're away from them, they will still be developing. And then again, you might even have just met up with a close friend who you haven't seen in years, and whilst they have been gone, they've been developing, and so have you. There's just so much you want to talk about, and so many things that you will also never be told. You see, sometimes we can imagine so much we want to tell somebody we really love, but we can't. And that is something deeply rooted in human nature and those what-if possibilities. So when we watch a film, you'll find a similar thing happens. We watch characters develop, we get into the storyline and the setting, we get so absorbed into the film that once it's over, we then realise that we've just been sitting here observing this film with our emotions constantly changing, making the storyline so much better. And all of that happened in such a short amount of time. How long was that film? 90 minutes? So you see, that 90 minutes was nothing compared to what we can feel in a lifetime. And that goes to show how far we can get into our imagination that it becomes a major form of escapism. But when we go on holiday, we always plan to go away, but the paradox is the fact that wherever we go away to, we will always be there. So let's think about how stories are written out of imagination. So during the process of how a story is made, our brain can follow so many patterns going back and forth, sometimes completely off track, or sometimes the ideas are so random and completely fragmented everywhere. Now, when we read a book, what we often take for granted is how the writer processed it, because even though imagination can come up with endless things, the hard bit is when you've got to structure your own imagination into writing. Now that's where the writer's block comes in. You see, when most of our favourite books or TV shows were made, although there might be one general idea that fits the bigger storyline, there's still loads of smaller details that need to fit in well and make sense for the plot and continuity to work out. And don't even forget about how in-depth the settings can get, because even though the author's version might be different, there can be an entire world for you to see through your very own eyes. Plus, even the characters the writer uses can be developed pretty deeply. You'd be surprised at how many of them actually have humanistic traits, But when we really think about it, how many of these characters actually have a mind of their own? Because you see, as living beings, we don't just get one aspect of ourselves, we have multiple. But when that aspect of itself grows even more, what will the figures in our own mind represent? It's a phenomenon that happens in childhood. We give stuffed toys names, and we play with them like they're actually real. But where did these names even come from? It's just kind of weird because even though we might play with dolls, footballs or kendamas, it just seems like there happens to be an entirely different world inside that moment that's happening when you're playing with these. So finally, I just want to touch on how knowledge can change the laws of the imagination. So, as we happen to get further into the dream world, we might notice the same patterns in this story we receive before we open our eyes to realise it's the morning. Eventually, some of us, after time, have picked up on these patterns and presto, you're now awake in the dream. You now have many things you can do, such as flying, switching scenes, or talking to dream characters. It's a crazy world to be conscious in, unless we get so excited that the dream collapses and we wake up. But it's somehow just that slight change in awareness that somehow grants us the power to interact with our own mind even more. I guess it goes to show that we have to wake up at some point in our lives and learn to take control of our situation, whatever it may be. You see, all it takes is a little bit of awareness and imagination. So guys, hope you enjoyed the video. Be sure to give it a like, comment, subscribe. We got videos coming out every Wednesday at 6 PM. And now, cue the reveal.